It's time for Dart Talk. Brought to you by thedartzone.com. Stay in the zone. Thedartzone.com is an official Cosmo distributor and Windy City Fabricators, America's premier fabricators of orthotics and prosthetics. And Redwood Darts, America's newest tungsten darts. Stand straight and tall and hit them all. Redwood Darts. And now, here are your hosts, Mystery Mark and Steve P.
Okay, welcome to Dart Talk.
Welcome.
We're back.
We are back. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine.
Dart Talk brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
DartZone.com is an official console distributor. Right off the bat, no show next week.
No show.
So we're saying Happy Thanksgiving today. I don't know, for the people in Europe and Canada and Brazil and New Zealand, I don't know. Probably doesn't mean much to them, but Happy Thanksgiving anyway.
Anyway, sure.
Yeah, so we'll be dark next week, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. It's award season.
It is.
Cubs are sweeping it so far.
Of course they will.
I think Rizzo got hosed, not getting, I don't know.
Not getting what?
Well, nominated for Most Valuable Player.
Oh.
It's the same problem we have every year when we talk about Most Outstanding Player and Newcomer of the Year and what's the other one we do? Player of the Year, right? What's the criteria, right? In Major League Baseball for Most Valuable Player, they got it's everybody gave it to Harper in August because, you know, his hitting is just better than anybody else's this year, right? Well, what the team do, you know?
They don't. Well, I mean that's an argument.
And then the other guys that are getting Joey Votto and Paul Goldschmidt didn't play a meaningful game all year,
right?
So you go 2 for 4 when you're playing out the string during the salary drive. You go 2 for 4 when you're fighting for a playoff spot. I mean,
but you can make the argument that they.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to say what's more valuable. I mean, if the other 8 guys on your team are better than the other 8 guys on the other guy's team, does that make you more valuable, or does it just make you a better team and therefore your numbers are good, as good?
I don't know. I mean, that's the problem we have when we talk about like Player of the Year and Most Outstanding Player and stuff like that. Is like what objective criteria do you have versus, you know, the touchy-feely thing like the MVP thing,
right?
Right. You're the best player on a last place team. How valuable are you? Because if you're not there, they lose, and if you are there, they lose. So how valuable
if you're
can
not
you be?
there, they lose 110
even more.
games.
If you are not 110. I mean, if your wins above replacement is 7.
Yeah.
Okay, so now instead of losing 100 games, they lose 107. I mean, what's the difference? You still stink. Right. Whereas if you finish 2 games out of first, and your wins above replacement is 7, now you're 9 games out of first.
Well,
or you win by 5, or whatever. I mean, I just don't see how. And Andre Dawson got it one year, but he had like Triple Crown numbers for a last place team, and he played so outstandingly. They gave him Most Valuable Player. They should have 2 awards like we do. See, we're smarter,
right?
We have the Most Outstanding Player, but then we also have the Player of the Year.
Yeah,
right, which is like our equivalent of an MVP. So we'll start giving those out in a couple of weeks. We'll start, Newcomer of the Year, and then...
Yeah, it's coming to that time of year.
I know.
Getting ready for the first hit of winter.
Well...
Coming this weekend, and next thing you know, it's award season.
We had winds were so high they canceled a couple of thousand flights out of O'Hare. O'Hare's running off the diagonals. I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
So that was kind of weird. What else went on?
Let's disclaim first.
Yeah, disclaim before I...
The views, opinions, rants, and rampages expressed on Dart Talk do not necessarily reflect individually or collectively those of our sponsors, co-sponsors, wannabe hosts, hearing-impaired critics, or those with a penchant for attitudinal dysfunction. We at Dart Talk strive to provide you, the listener, with an educational, entertaining and fun-filled experience each and every week. If after the show you, the listener, find yourself feeling uneducated, unentertained and or bored, we at Dart Talk consider that your own problem.
Okay, so there we are. We have results. We'll wrap up. We'll wrap up the Grand Slam.
First of all, we should ask for people's votes or suggestions for
player
of the year.
Most outstanding player.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
email
newcomer of the year.
You guys can email your suggestions.
We've done it before.
darttalk@gmail.com. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's always the same people, so nobody even bothers. I mean, and any player's wife that sends an email, it's going right in the trash. I'll just assume if you're a player's wife, you're voting for your player, and we could just leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay. Get your next door neighbor to send it, and then maybe I'll read it. So okay. Was that harsh?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if I saw an email from Jill, I would assume that she's nominating me for something, right?
I wouldn't assume that.
Let's see, where are we? So, okay. So
dishwasher of the year, maybe?
Later in the show, we'll wrap up the Grand Slam of darts. Also, I want to talk about changing your darts, the pros and cons of that.
All right.
Also, how to get your mindset right.
Which dart do you throw first?
I could not believe that. That's part of the thing that drove me off of Facebook. It's like, people are just being silly.
Yeah.
Also, building a better stance. I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, I want to talk about the value of imitation. I told you on the way here that I actually practiced.
Yes.
It's the longest practice session I have had since I hurt my arm back in early February.
Beginning of the year somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So the Hawks are playing a Friday night. No, it was Saturday.
Yeah, they didn't play Friday night.
Yeah. So Saturday, I was going to watch the hockey game at home, and I was like, you know what? I'll just wander over to the local tavern with the dartboards, and if nobody's there, I'll play. Mm-hmm. I'll watch the game there. And there were some guys playing on one board, but the other board was open, so I'm like, fine. I'll just do what I do. I just play by myself. No problem with that, So first off, I'm like, okay, let's hit 10 double bowls. And it's like, oh, wow, this is taking a little longer than I thought. So then at one point, the owner of the bar walks by, and he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, well, good. He's like, by the way, and now he's got on the wall to the side of the boards, he's got a signed Bullseye News with Frank Lopez on it.
Okay.
Frank is a local Chicago guy. And the Bullseye News is from the 90s, right? And then he's got, as a joke, a second-place award to some darter that he beat. They had, like, some little one-day tournament with, like, 4 people, and the bar owner won, so he put up a second-place little fake plaque for the guy he beat in the final, who's one of the regulars. Right?
Oh, okay.
Then next to that is like a Bulls jersey. Signed by, I don't know, Ron Harper or something. I forget who it is, in a frame. Then he points to that, and he's like, hey, is that you? And then in the bottom right-hand corner of the frame is a picture. And I look at the picture, and I'm like, it's somebody in a baseball hat and glasses and a ponytail wearing a Mullins green dart shirt. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, no, that's not me. That's... And then I look, and it's the guy on the board next to me. So I'm like, yeah, that's Brad. And then I look at it again. And then I notice the ponytail, and I'm like, I look at, and I'm like, oh, I get it. So you guys had a little extra time for a Halloween costume, and you went as me, and everybody started laughing. And I was like, it took me so long to figure it out. I felt stupid, for one. But then I was like, well, it was funny, so I'm laughing. But now I'm like, well, now, should I be insulted or flattered? Or both?
That somebody went as you for Halloween?
Well, yeah, obviously they're mocking me, right?
Right.
Well. I guess you couldn't find, like, a Kim Kardashian costume or something? I mean, I don't know. It was... And I'm like, well, for one, I don't wear... And they got the dart case on the belt. Mm-hmm. And I don't play with my dart case on my belt, and I don't put it on the side there, and it's a different kind of dart case. But okay,
yeah, but that just adds to the costume.
Yeah. So they just thought it was like so funny, and I guess like I'm an easy target, whatever. But it did get me to thinking because, we were talking last week about Butler was playing Van Barneveld, and I was talking about, that's a stroke to emulate is Van Barneveld's, right? So one of the things I was doing, once I got done laughing and forgot all about, them mocking me, was I was trying to throw like Van Barneveld. So how do you do that? Well,
don't move.
Yeah. Well, generally I try not to move anyway,
right.
But the idea I had in my head to emulate Van Barneveld was to make sure that I followed through like right at my release point, because when I was watching Van Barneveld, what I noticed most of all was the way he was releasing the dart. It was almost like he was slapping it into the board. So where's the camera? So you have a nice open hand, and then his follow-through looked so good, and the sound that the dart made, he was releasing it really cleanly, and it was going like, straight into the board. And I was like, well, I'm going to try to do that. And that's going to be my swing thought.
Sure.
Right? You know how in golf they say you can have one swing thought, right?
Yeah, no more than one.
Yeah, no more than one. So you got to kind of forget about everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of hours, I really started playing good. And I went through the whole deal. 10 double bulls, 25 trip 20s, 2 of every double, 2 out of 3 into every double, and then start taking out finishes.
Mm-hmm.
Start at 80, work your way up. By the time I got to 97, I think I was so exhausted. I went out for a smoke. I come back, and then some jerk wants to play, and I'm like, no thanks.
Some jerk. Some guy that just wants to play is a jerk now.
Well, he's a jerk regardless of whether he wants to play.
Oh, okay.
Well, 2 things. One is, I don't think people really understand sometimes the value you get from playing someone and vice versa. Like if you look in some of the forums where these guys are online trying to get partners to play remotely on soft tip and stuff, they're complaining, well, so-and-so won't play me, so-and-so won't play me, so-and-so won't play me. Well, there's some obvious reasons for that. One of them is like so-and-so may not think that you can push them enough to make it worth their while. Now, I don't generally think people should take that personally, but sometimes they do, right? Like
I can see that.
So, I got my headphones on and I'm practicing. I'm going through everything I just said, right? And there's some people on the board next to me, and they're playing doubles, and, fine. Have at it. So at one point, one of the guys is like, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I figure he's got like, hey, how do you keep 3-way score cricket or something? He's like, I've been watching you throw, and I think I've got maybe a 10% chance of beating you in cricket.
And you said there's a 0% chance of that?
I said something like, well, it's probably lower than that.
Yeah.
I think you got like maybe a 1% chance. And he's like, well, you want to play? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, why don't you spot me 200 points? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go first then. He's like, yeah, okay. So we play, and like I think my second or third round I went like fat 3, fat 3, fat 3. And he's like, well, what'd you do that for? I'm like, well, because I missed the 17.
Yeah.
I what do you say to that? And I'm just thinking as I'm pulling my darts, I'm like, that's going to cost me 10 minutes. Right? It's going to take me 10. Yeah, it's going to take 10 minutes of me getting points to get
in order to win the match.
Yeah. And eventually I won it, and he didn't even have the 6s and 5s closed. Right? So I mean, I was like, hey, good game, whatever. But it just got me to thinking that, like, okay, I spotted him 200 points, so I had to work a little bit. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it would have been a total, like, whatever. Whatever you throw doesn't really matter because you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Now, in soft tip, when they do leagues and stuff, they have these, like, insane handicaps to keep you, kind of interested in the leg. Yeah, but
playing field level.
Yeah, but the problem is, like, mentally, I don't know how anybody handles that. Like, I'm going to spot you the throw and 7 marks.
Well, the problem is I played in a league that when I first moved up here, a handicap league, and the problem is you can get sandbaggers.
Yeah.
And, and it was actually steel tip. It wasn't even plastic tip.
Oh, God. It was like the old...
yeah. And it's just like,
neutralizer or something.
it's a fine line between the competitive atmosphere of the people that want to do it and want to win, and if you keep winning and you're playing well, then your handicap goes lower and you're going to give more darts, and then there's the people that are just like, well, I'm going to try and get as many darts as possible, or you throw the last couple legs because your team's winning, because people do that, and it's just like...
You mean throw off?
Yeah. So that to me, that was the problem with that league, because eventually you're going to get to a point where you're just like, well, I can't win because these guys are better than what their handicap is because they're sandbagging.
And then, look, I mean, there's like, you're in a bar. You know how people talk in a bar or talk amongst themselves in a bar and stuff. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, well, you beat somebody Saturday night in some bar, and it's like, you're going to wear that like as a patch on your sleeve? Yeah. Like, seriously, dude?
We used to throw after work, a Friday night or Saturday night, and we would play partners cricket. And I'd start out by, it didn't matter who was on my team compared to the other and the other team, because none of the three guys were good dart players. Plus, alcohol's involved.
Right.
So I'd start out by giving them 3 marks at cricket, and we'd play $5 a game, a man. So then after we'd win the first one, I'd give them 4 marks. And after we win the next one, we'd give them 5 marks. But I would never let them close it. I'd say you can get 2 marks.
Right, but yeah, right.
You can't close out a number. You can't take 3 20s. I mean, we got to the point where I was giving them 9 marks. And they still wouldn't win. Because they couldn't hit bullseyes is really what it came down to. Because by the time you give them 9 marks, they're going to eventually just close out all the numbers. They've got them all half closed anyway, but then they couldn't hit bullseyes.
I just remember the first and only time I ever played like one of these soft tip handicap leagues where I had to play a leg of cricket against a guy. He got to go first, and he got 2 marks on the 20, the 19, the 18, and the 17 or something, and the 15
and
or whatever. And he goes first, and he goes trip 20, trip 19, trip 18, and I'm like,
now what?
Go to the line. I'm 17 marks behind, or whatever it was, and I'm just like, well, this is stupid. So I play, and eventually I lose, and he's bragging how he beat me, and I'm like, well, you didn't beat me.
Yeah,
you had like a frickin' huge handicap. You want to play straight up for money? Let's play.
Right.
You want to play? You think you're a player? Let's play for money. Otherwise, close them out.
Yeah, I don't think the team.
And I'm not like that. I don't
team
walk
in the
up to people
NFL that's getting 8 points and loses by 6 isn't chanting, "Hey, we covered the spread."
Well, they don't get 8 points. I mean, I mean, maybe the Bears should, but they don't.
Right.
I mean, in pro football, I mean, whoever the Patriots are playing should start up 13 points.
They should.
You want to make it even,
right?
But you don't do that in pro sports. There are no handicaps.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where this, I get that's amateur.
Right.
Right? You amateurs, pros play scratch and amateurs get handicaps.
Sure.
Okay, fine. It was still fun to do it once. I mean, I hadn't played cricket in forever, but I was just sort of like, this is, I have no feel for that. Where are we on time?
Oh, we're due for a break.
All right, I got a little more to say about imitation, and then we'll move on. You're listening to Dart Talk. Mystery Mark Steve Ponce, and we'll be back in a minute.
The views and opinions expressed on Dart Talk are those of the hosts. They in no way should be misrepresented, misinterpreted, or made to claim that the universe is against you, your family, your city, or the darting community at large.
Okay, back for the second quarter of Dart Talk, brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. We did want to pass along some condolences. We lost 2 people in the darting community in Chicago.
A week and a half.
Since the last show, I think. I mean, I don't even know what to say about it. You knew Darren Wills.
Darren Wills.
And Angie Anton, who just coincidentally, we were talking about her brother, is the guy who owns the bar in Pittsburgh and Chicago that we met when we were in Pittsburgh. Angie ran the Mark II for years and years and would get together little teams of beginners and stuff. And between her father and Tony, they probably introduced, I don't know, in the last 15, 20 years, hundreds of people to, league darts in Chicago. And Angie succumbed to cancer a day or 2 ago. And Darren... Wow.
Darren,
he was young,
I didn't get the details. They said he went into the hospital for a heart condition of some sort. He was only 40 years old or 40-something.
Way too young.
A guy I used to play with every year. He was always on one of the teams he played in league.
Yeah, he was one of the all-star nickel guys that would show up in the four-man.
And then you'd see him at the
stuff.
Cup every year. And you always, when you play the same teams in league, every session you usually have like at least 3 or 4 of the same teams. So you're always playing the same guys. There's always teams that you just don't like to play against, people that you don't like, but there's always a couple teams that you're like, I like going to that bar, or I like having them come to our bar. And
they're fun to play with.
They were
win
fun
or lose.
to play with. They were good people, and Darren Wills was on that team, and one of his really good friends, Tom Terzic, and those guys were always fun to play against, and you always saw them, and they were just, and Darren was a really good guy, and it was, I haven't seen the guy since I'm out of the loop, in years, but it was just, the way the post I came in, I saw it was just, it was sudden, very sad, and I haven't seen or know anybody that ever had a bad word to say about the guy. So
no, he was well thought of.
Yeah,
as far as I knew, he was always a great guy. So it was sad to hear. So thoughts and prayers to the families of Darren Wills and Angie Anton. That was really sad to hear.
Yeah.
Angie was fun. Angie was like, she would come into the bar and make like this homemade Greek sausage and put it in some Tupperware and say, hey, you want to try some? And I'd have one piece and I'd be like, can I have the rest of it? Because
this is fantastic.
Yeah, and her father, it's just sad. Anyway, so thought we'd pass that along for our Chicago listeners who, like me, don't get on Facebook much. The last thing on imitation was, by imitating that one thing that Van Barneveld was doing, I think it really helped me, get my dart to the board, and I thought that was
well, when you do something
valuable.
like that, how much does it matter whether the dart goes in? Is it just more the feel of actually the throw, and then eventually as you're throwing for that hour that they're going to start going in, or after 15 minutes, if the darts aren't hitting remotely close to the triple 20, or you're like, well, the follow through is great, but it's still not working.
Well, the way it went on Saturday night was it was a lot longer than an hour. I think I practiced by myself for 4 hours, which is a long time. But what it did was it got my muscle memory working and got my follow through where it needed to be to start hitting stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like, how long did it take till you really were confident you were going to hit them? Was it like a half hour?
Confident?
Half hour of practicing that, and then like 2 hours of like consistently.
Well, I'll tell you how it took about an hour and a half, because when I started going for the 2 out of 3 on every double, I think it took me 10 shots to get the double one. And it took me 10 shots to get the double 2. And it took me 8 shots to get the double 3. And then as I went around the board, once I got to, numbers that were normal, like 8 and 7, like I put like
10s and 12s.
I hit the 7 right away. I put 3 in the double 8. I drilled the double 9 and went like first one in, wire, first one in, wire, then got, 2 out of 3 in, then threw 3 in the double 10, and I'm like, okay, this is starting to feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately hit the 11. 12's not my best. I was on the 12 for a little bit, and then I hit the 13 right away, hit the 14 on my second one, hit the 15 right away, put 3 in the 16, and I'm like, okay, this is good. It's just, because you're not really thinking about anything but, okay, what's the next number? And then, at some point, I'm not imitating them anymore, but I ingrained it in my muscle memory, and so it was working.
Right.
Right. The thing about imitating somebody, and I've seen people like joking around and doing it. Like, who was the guy with the skull cap? Somebody like put on like a bald thing and was trying to imitate your buddy. But what struck me remarkable about that was he had studied the guy's stroke well enough to make it look good. Like, Jill was joking around with me, and I was telling her Joe Chaney came. I was outside in Huntsville, Alabama, a few years ago, and it was like Saturday night, 12:30. You're getting toward the end of the draw. Everybody's tired, and they've all been drinking and joking around, so we're just out there laughing about stuff. And Joe Chaney comes out, and then eventually he's like, "Oh, I could do a Penuncelman imitation." and he did. I did this thing where I would get my foot set and then kind of like align everything, and it turned into like the little David Keith shimmy from Major League Two, right?
Well, yeah,
he does a little shimmy at the plate.
You would like go at the dart.
Yeah, I don't know that I do.
Your arm, arm at the right angle.
Yeah, I don't know that I.
You always had a setup procedure.
But I did it the same way every time.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how goofy it looked until he did it, and he did it like perfectly. And then the next morning, I go to throw my first dart, and I just stop, and I'm like, I do that. Oh my God! So the rest of the day, I think I threw like garbage because I was trying not to look so stupid when I was trying to get set.
Yeah.
But I would do this thing where I would stand, because I straddle the line, back then. I'm not doing it now. I did the whole new stance thing. That's why I want to talk about stance. But I would straddle the line and get my feet shoulder width, almost the way a pitcher kind of gets set before he goes into the stretch. And then as I would turn to look at the board, like kind of my hips would move, and I would kind of like move them back. I mean, it was, not aesthetically pleasing, I don't think. But I didn't realize how bad it looked until I saw Chaney do it. So when you look at people like Taylor, or you look at people like Van Gerwen, or you look at people like Gary Anderson, if you try to imitate them and you really study their stroke, there's things that they do that can help you. Like if you look at Van Gerwen, like if I was going to imitate Van Gerwen, his stance is a little difficult because he's got quite a lean. But if you look at the way he takes a dart and takes it from his left hand to his right hand, I'm thinking about that thing you said before. He brings the dart up from where his hand is in perfect line for where he wants to throw it.
Right.
So he's in a straight line literally from the floor all the way up, no hesitation, and then lets it go.
Your dart and then bringing it back down.
Yeah. But so he's in line all the way up and all the way down. That's something that's worth emulating if you want to try to imitate Van Gerwen. If you want to imitate Taylor, I would say look at the way he gets his follow-through. Look at how Phil finishes. I mean, it's like really like complete and utter arm extension right at the target every time.
He comes back towards his opposite eye.
It's hard to tell because of the camera angle, but it almost looks like Brian McKay brings it like this.
Yeah.
I don't think he does it as pronounced as he used to.
But it would be hard to emulate. It works for him, but that would be a difficult thing.
That's something that's relatively unorthodox. If you watch Adrian Lewis rolls the dart back in his hand as he brings it back and then lets it go. But if you notice how where's the camera? He'll set the dart on top of his thumb. He'll set the dart on top of his thumb and then roll it back until he gets here and then let it go. And he does it the same way every time. If you look at Gary Anderson, Gary will twirl the dart back, but he'll bring it right below his eye every time and then just sight down and throw it. So, I mean, every player that you see, there's something that if you're imitating them, or what I'm saying is try to imitate some of these guys and pick out the things that they do
that's easiest
that
for
can
you.
help you.
Yeah.
Right?
Plus, that's easiest for you to do. If you can't, because not everybody can, like Gary Anderson, can bring it to this part of their eye. Some people have to bring it outside. Some people,
because it changes your arm
lower.
angle. His
Right.
arm is tilted in order to get it to your eye because your shoulder's over here.
Yeah.
Right? Most Americans take it to the side of their eye, like here. So trying to imitate Gary Anderson
would work, right?
Or you'd lose an eye.
Yeah.
Right? I have glasses to protect me from that. So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels? Be like you have to put the cork on the back of the flight so you didn't poke your eye out every time.
Oh, that movie's
Ruprecht.
In Oklahoma. That movie's funny. Okay, so enough about imitation. What else were we supposed to talk about? Let's save the stance part. Changing your darts. You're throwing what? Just some darts you've had forever?
Did you bring flights for me?
I thought about it yesterday. I'm like, I got to bring Mark some flights. And then I totally forgot.
Monday night I was going to just send you a picture of the flight and go, do you still have some of these? And
wait a minute. You were throwing, what were you throwing?
I don't.
They
elongated fin flights, not the fat ones, but the long.
Are you throwing the same ones I'm throwing, or were you throwing the kind of kites where they're wider at the top but skinnier at the bottom? Yeah. I don't have any more of those. I gave you all of them.
Okay.
I was just trying those out, and then you said you liked them, so I gave you all of them. We'll have to get you some kites. I have rockets. Rockets are kind of like just shaved down standard flights that give you a little better airspeed.
Oh, see, I would probably like those too. I just don't like the regular standard big flights.
Okay. Well, I've got rockets still. You can have.
I'll try those. But anyway, back to what. So,
well, I started out throwing straight barrels. Like somebody just gave me a set of darts and said, "Here, use these." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And then, like after a week, he's like, "Do you like them?" I'm like, "Yeah, they're fine." He's like, "Okay, $20." I'm like, "Here you go." So they were Eric Bristow PowerPoints, like just kind of standard ones. And then everybody in Chicago, for some odd reason, was throwing Black Widows. So I got a set of those. Those were kind of thicker barrels with like a weird little knurl.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried those, but I didn't really like them, but I won with them. And then I was playing this guy who came to Chicago. It was my first Windy City Open. So I was playing in the blind draw. I had somebody who just literally, there was no way we had a chance of winning because she couldn't hit anything. So I kind of knew I was doomed. So I spent the entire 2 legs watching this pro from Boston, and he had these straight barrel darts with really tight rings. And I was like, well, those are pretty cool. So after the match, I asked him, can I see those? I mean, those are, oh, yeah, la-di-da-di-da. So the Jeff Pickup used to come and make darts at the Windy City Open. So I had him, I described them to him. He's like, oh, yeah, I can make you those. Oh, pick them up tomorrow. So he made me a set of those, and I used those for a while. And then I was on a team, and somebody had an old set of darts that I picked up by mistake and threw them, and I'm like, wow, these feel really good. And they were some old, worn-out Bob Anderson straight barrel darts. So I used those for a while. Every set of darts I had, I won with, right? And then at some point, I decided I wanted to try front-loaded darts just to see what they were like. Picked up a set. I bought them for like $10 or something. They did, they're one of the dart makers. I think I got them in Philly. Had just had a bunch of barrels, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'll just grab these barrels and try them someday. And they literally sat around for like 8 months, and finally I threw some flights and shafts on them. And the first thing I did was throw a 1080, and I'm like, seriously? So I picked them up again and like just threw awesome. So I played with them in league and just tore it up, and I was like, well, hey, these darts got some potential. Because I found that I could throw easier with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kept their own little kinetic energy and all that stuff, little momentum. So I started using those, and I was winning with those everywhere. I was playing really good then too. And the problem with these darts though were that if you short armed them at all, they would dive down,
mm-hmm.
right? So if I would get tighter, I would get nervous. To get them to the board was like I would kind of chicken wing them, and it would look terrible. And then I was going to keep using them, but then I was watching somebody play, I think at Dye's Den, which has like a tile floor.
Yeah.
And the guy's dart hit the wire, went to the floor, and the barrel cracked.
Really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
it was some old 20-year-old darts, and he's like, well, I'll just have to get another set. And then I was looking at my darts, and I'm like, well, I can't get another set of these. I don't even know who made them. And I'm like, what am I going to do if I'm at a tournament and my barrel breaks, and now I'm going to have to go to some radical other darts? So I was like, well, It just so happened, like, I got a set of James Wade's, which were like almost like a Phil Taylor grip, but straight barrels. So I tried using those, won a tournament with those, and started using those, and retired the front-loaded ones.
Okay.
Right? Now,
I'm still trying to wonder what the point is here.
Well, here's the point. Is, I decided to try because it's off season for me.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about playing until January sometime. And I don't know where I'm going to play, but apparently it won't be in Philly. Right?
Okay.
So this was always the time of year where you could experiment with stuff. Like, there's something going on in Columbus, I think, this weekend. Or maybe like the Southside Cup is this weekend, but I'm not going to those. But once those are over, you don't have a tournament for 6, 7, 8 weeks. This is your off season now. This is a time where if you want to tinker with something, you can. So if you're thinking of like maybe making a change to your grip, or you want to try different flights or different shafts, what have you, this is the best time to do it because you're not committed to any tournaments unless you're going to like, Lakeside or, the PDC championship,
Sure.
right? This is your chance to really see if there's some little way that you can improve your game, right? This is the time where you go to the dart store and I want to try the kites, or I want to try speed flights, or I want to, whatever. I want to try longer shafts, shorter shafts, longer points, if you can manage that. Longer points I always highly recommend those.
Right.
And then, it used to be that the new stuff came out now. I mean, I don't know if that's really true. So I decided I would go back and try those, the front-loaded darts again.
Oh, okay.
So I did that 2 days ago. Couldn't miss for 45 minutes. I was like, wow, these are great. Then I tried using them yesterday. All of a sudden, I'm playing Army darts. Left, right, left, right, left, right. So that's all basically me monkeying around with my setup, right? And now that I have a new stance, I'm like not really sure where I'm supposed to be standing and stuff, and I seem to be thrown across my body a little bit, not on purpose. I'm just taking the dart back outside almost automatically, and I'm like, well, where did this come from? So we'll have to figure out the best way to address that because I'm sort of like don't know what to do about that. Where are we on time? I just feel like I'm rambling.
Oh, we're due for a break.
All right, we'll come back and we'll talk. Let's do the results from
just
the
real quick. The Ray Chesney they're done, right? That was their last year.
We were told like a month ago. Yeah, I never got the skinny on that.
Yeah, they just closed their doors.
What they're asking in the chat room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not Philly? And then what happened to the Ray Chesney? But,
Don't know. Don't know. I can effort that. Get Sam the intern on that. Anyway, okay, we're going to come back. We'll do the results from the Grand Slam of Darts. You're listening to Dart Talk with Mystery Mark, Steve P. We'll be right back.
Dart Talk agrees to adhere to the Geneva Convention in treating fairly its prisoners in their war against lackluster darting administration and behaviour.
Okay, back for the second half of Dart Talk, brought to you by the Dart Zone.
Stay in the zone.
TheDartZone.com is an official Cosmo distributor. Get those shafts and plates. Try something new. One last thing about stance before we get to the World Series of Darts. So like I said, I played 4 hours, roughly. That's a long time to be playing by yourself because you get to the line quicker. My right leg was so frickin' sore.
Oh, I can understand that, yeah.
That I really started to wonder. And then the other thing is the floor has, it's weird, this place, the floor slopes a little bit from right to left. So I felt, you have to resist that. And I kind of sipping on Jaeger while I'm playing, just chilling, And it started to be a little bit of a balance issue.
That's the way the floor is where we play league.
Oh, is it?
It goes this way, and so 3 weeks ago when we were at home, they only had a dartboard right in the center, but apparently they've decided to take the practice board from a completely different room and split the difference. But so when you just look at the wall, the dartboards are like this because the floor slopes like that.
See,
it's actually pretty funny.
That is where straddling the line. I think it's a lot easier to keep your balance and to keep straight.
Yeah.
Than it is to either have your foot forward or my foot's now at a 45 to the line, and I just feel like I have to resist falling. So it wasn't so bad the day after, but 2 days later, I'm like, I don't know, how far up does your Achilles go? Does it go all the way up to the back of your knee?
No, it goes to your calf.
It ends at your calf?
Yeah, if your Achilles snaps, your calf muscle rolls up to the back of your knee.
Well, my Achilles and my calf were sore, and I would hold the sides of it, and it was really tender all the way up to my calf. So now I'm stretching my Achilles by trying to keep my balance with this stance on a floor that isn't perfectly level. Right. And then you're trying to hold your position as your arms extending. Right? So as much as it's not the best thing for my back, I may have to go back to straddling the line. Because that was the reason I did it. The only reason I'm changing my stance was to make it easier on my lower back because I don't have to twist.
Yeah.
Right, to get a line with the board.
Right.
So, I don't know, for what it's worth. You got to think about these things if you're going to monkey around with stuff. Who was the guy we had on who said, I don't think about anything because I ain't changing nothing? Was it Dan Naylor said that? The guy who won the 501 a couple years ago?
Right.
See, if only I had that attitude.
Right.
I'd be doing what I did from day one. I mean, how do you not try to improve? The better you get, the harder it is to improve. I mean, I was listening to Arrieta today. He won the Cy Young, and he's like, he had to fight to get everything together where it was, locked in and working, and you try this, you try that, until you find something that works.
The difference is, certain things is you find, but once you find something that works, like you're saying, Dan, he's not changing it because it's working.
Well,
now,
eventually, you're going to have...
The things that change, from an Arrieta standpoint, aren't necessarily, once you found the mechanics and the arm angle and everything to work, but then the things that change are his workout regime and his
Well, he's
health
moved over on the rubber,
right.
though. He went all the way over to the third base side of the rubber.
Yeah, but he's not going to all of a sudden move it 2 inches to the left in spring training. Just to see what happens.
Right. No, because he knows that he's going to be successful
from here. He's not
here.
changing anything.
Yeah. See, I don't know where I used to stand the first couple of years I played. I never really paid attention to it. Where was my feet in relation to the board?
No, that's what I'm trying to think of too, and I changed back to what I think I used to do, which is like you're saying, more my left foot is almost even with the line, and I'm square. My whole body is, parallel with the board almost, as opposed to
wait, your left foot is where? You're right-handed.
Yeah.
Your left foot's somewhere behind you.
A little bit, but not way behind me and turned. It's closer to...
Do you have any weight on your left foot at all?
No.
Oh, okay. Does it swing up like John Part?
No.
Like a counterbalance? Do you ever?
Anyway.
Do the people who kick back, explain that one to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Well, that's because they're throwing their whole body into it. They're throwing their shoulder forward, and then their back foot kicks back because otherwise they're going to fall over.
All beginners, because the local bar I go to is generally like beginner city. You'll just get people, hey, let's go play some darts. Oh. So they play like, an hour and a half, one leg of cricket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to watch. Like almost every beginner girl has her left foot forward and she's throwing right-handed. And almost every guy has his right foot forward, but he's bending his knees.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
And you start to get a little seasick if you watch them. They're like bobbleheads, man. I never really understood that. All right, enough on that. Let's get to
some results.
Yeah, the Grand Slam of darts. Where did we left off? What, halfway into the quarters?
Yeah.
Last week. Okay. And then we'll talk a little bit about mindset to wrap up
halfway
the show.
before the quarters.
Okay.
We still had one more second round match to go.
So what happened last Thursday?
Second round, Michael Smith beats Chizzy 10-7.
Yeah, and that was the match I said if Chizzy got by Michael Smith, I think Chizzy was good to win. And he did not.
That did not work.
He failed to achieve total victory.
Van Gerwen 10-2 over Steve Beaton.
10-2 doesn't even describe how badly he cruised by Beaton. I mean, it was like,
how did he even lose two?
It was like me against Helen Keller, and I get to go first. No, Beaton's been playing good. I mean, he's really, of all the old guard guys that were like names in the 90s, he's the one guy that's like managed to climb. While everyone else like Ronnie Baxter and Alan Warner and all these guys have kind of faded away, Peter Manley, Colin Lloyd, all the guys that were like, doing really good when I first started playing, he's the only guy, and he was actually not even doing good then. So kudos to him for getting that far.
Peter Wright loses to Adrian Lewis 10-7.
Yeah.
And Kim Hybricks wins 10-9 against Martin Adams.
Yeah, it went down to a decider. I remember saying something like I thought Hybricks would wipe the floor with him and how I couldn't stand watching Martin Adams. The one thing to take away from the Grand Slam was, that was the last BDO guy left in the field, so he was out. I think the darting community in the UK really enjoyed having like Andy Fordham and Martin Adams and the other BDO guys, knocking heads with the PDC guys. I mean, it's too bad that they still can't settle on some way where, it doesn't matter
to be
where
unified?
Yeah. I mean, because when you think about it, it's such a mess. And no other sport can survive it. I mean, if you look at yeah, but look, boxing's dead.
Yeah.
That's I'm stripping your title because you're not playing this guy. And I can't. I mean, boxing's been dead for a long time. It's just they haven't gotten the memo. Right? Boxing's nowhere what it used to be.
No, not at all.
That's why there's all this MMA stuff. Did you see Ronda Rousey get absolutely beaten,
brutalized
to a pulp?
Yeah.
Did you see the whole thing?
No.
I saw a highlight thing, and I just was sort of astounded. She didn't even look like she belonged in the ring with that girl. That girl, like the elbow she broke her nose, split her lip, and it didn't take that long. From what I read, like she at one point body slammed Ronda Rousey and then let her get back up so she could keep beating on her. I mean, it was kind of like, whoa. That was the biggest upset in fighting since Tyson.
Since Tyson lost to Buster Douglas.
And I don't know. I don't follow that stuff. But, if you look at, the mishmash of organizations and all this, I mean, that's why boxing doesn't thrive. Mm-hmm. If you look at the NFL, is that your model sport as far as like, you look at how many eyeballs are watching football and all that. Everybody says it's the biggest spectator sport. Right. I don't know what it's like.
Well, no, the biggest spectator sport is soccer.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know what it's like in Europe with their football, right, because it's soccer. But in our football, they had to merge.
Right.
Right? every competing league eventually folded, so there would only be one.
Mm-hmm.
And when the AFL started, then that merged. And then when Donald Trump and those people tried to start the USFL,
Yeah.
they all went out of business and they absorbed all the players because you can only have one league if you're going to be like a sport. You can have two conferences. You can have two distinct conferences like baseball has. Like different rules, like DH and whatnot.
Right.
But you can only have one league. You can't have the World Series going over here and then another World Series over here.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense to anybody. It's like, okay, how many world champions can you have? Oh, apparently you can have 15 different heavyweight champions. Well, that means you don't have any. Right?
Right. It's not unified.
Yeah, and I'm not saying anything about Ollie Croft or, who did what to whom, when,
No,
how,
you just
or
like
what.
to
I'm
see
just saying
somehow
that
make
if
it-
you unified it,
Right.
and it would just be better for everybody, and I don't know why you need to have two.
Did Snoopy just show up in the background here, or has he been here the whole time?
Who? Snoopy's been behind me.
Oh, okay.
I've been petting him
I didn't
like
know
during
all
the
of a sudden
commercial
there's
breaks.
Snoopy.
See? Hey, Snoop.
So anyway, sorry, I digress.
Yeah. So that's so where are we on the results then?
Okay, so that got us to the quarterfinal matches, which were Friday and Saturday. Mark Webster against Van Barneveld. Van Barneveld won 16-12.
Yeah.
And Phil Taylor over Robert Dorton, 16-7.
Yeah. That was kind of a pasting.
Taylor.
Yeah.
So then your Saturday quarterfinals was Michael Smith continues his run, 16-11 over Adrian Lewis. And Van Gerwen makes quick work of Kim Heibrich, 16-4.
I mean, 10-2 and 16-4.
Yeah.
I mean,
26-6. That's pretty good.
against some, you're not playing slouches.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's, Van Gerwen is really, he's been the best player all year.
Yeah.
And even though the average, we'll get to that. But all right, continue.
So then you get to your Sunday afternoon semifinals, where Van Gerwen keeps up his hot streak, 16-6 over Michael Smith, and Phil Taylor gets by Raymond Van Barneveld, 16-12.
16-12.
So you got Van Gerwen against Taylor in your final evening session on Sunday. And
Who beat Adrian Lewis?
Michael Smith.
I'd have to think that was an upset.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah. Bully boy. There's a kid that's moved up. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the Premier League. They're going to have to figure out who's going to be in the Premier League pretty soon, and they'll wait till after the World Championships. But remember last year they had Wes Newton and they had Stephen Bunting, and they actually expanded the field. If they don't have Michael Smith in it, they're making a huge mistake for next year.
And then your final, Taylor kind of brought Van Gerwen down to earth a little bit, but Van Gerwen won 16-13.
Yeah, it was a weird match. Taylor broke out on top early and had a chance to go up 5 legs and
4 legs.
Had a chance to go up 4 clear and blew a double.
Yeah.
And Van Gerwen threw a ton 80. Taylor missed a double, and then Van Gerwen checked out a 105, which is not 105 is not for the top players, not that big a deal. One double
Right.
a double. And that
Well,
made it
Taylor goes down or is up 3-1, and then but after blowing the 4th leg, still goes up 4-1, wins the next one, and then it was relatively close back and forth until Taylor got up 7-3, and then Van Gerwen decided to throw some muscle around and win 6 straight matches.
6 straight legs.
So he went from down 3-7 to up 9-7, and basically that. The Taylor tied it at 9-9.
Okay.
Taylor then wins the next 2, 9-9. But then it was basically Van Gerwen win 1, win 2, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 2, and eventually get to the 16-13 victory. The numbers are pretty close.
Yeah, it was like 1 break, I think.
Yeah, 6 breaks of throw for Van Gerwen, 4 for Taylor. So
2 breaks.
2 breaks.
Yeah.
33, 36% on their doubles.
29 legs, up 2 breaks.
Yeah.
That's a break every 5-10 legs.
Well, I had 10 breaks out of 29, so every other leg there's a break.
Every third. 10
Every
out of
third.
10 out of
10 out of 30, yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of breaks to throw, but you got guys throwing 12 darters,
Right.
I mean,
12, 13, 14 darters.
yeah.
I mean, they had 25-ton 80s and combined.
What was it?
Both
the
averaged over
checkout,
100.
Yeah, but the checkout percentages are kind of low.
Yeah.
And that's why you don't see the averages higher, because they scored well.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to miss 2 out of every 3 doubles and still average well over 100, you're scoring pretty
Could
good.
Be 108
Yeah.
if you throw 50% in your doubles.
Yeah. So it's a pretty high standard, and we've been saying that for over a year, that the standard of play is just way, way higher than it's been. And I was wondering if anybody was really going to approach a average. If you do the math and you throw a 12 darter, you're averaging 120, something like that.
Okay.
Right? What's 12 times 4? 48?
Yeah.
So more than 120. 21 divided by 4, 5. You're averaging about 125 for a 12 darter. Right? The record.
Okay.
Nobody's averaged 120 for an entire match.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if that's ever going to happen. It's got to
be able to consistently throw 12 darters. That would be sick.
Yeah, it would be sick. But I mean, look how much closer they are to it now.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years ago, Taylor was the only guy consistently averaging 100. That's a 15 darter, right? 15 darter is like 101 average, or 100 point whatever. Now you're looking at guys regularly averaging in the high hundreds,
right?
Or in the high, not really 110.
Yeah, well, anything
105 is no big deal. 106 is no big deal. 108 is no big deal for these guys anymore. So now they're averaging like 14 darters, right? I forget what the math is on a 14 darter, but it's pretty good. So if now they're starting to average between 14 and 13, whatever that number is in there. So I throw 2 14s and a 13, 2 14s and a 13. Great. It doesn't really matter because the magic number is 12. Right? Whether if it's your throw and you're on 40 after 12 darts, who cares if you hit it on your first dart or your third dart, as long as you hit it.
Right.
Right. Sure. But I'm starting to wonder now, where's the max on these averages from these guys? Because they're getting better and better and better. At some point it can't be. Is it possible over a long format to average a 12 darter?
I don't think so.
I bet you Van Gerwen says he could do it. I'll bet you Taylor says he does it in practice all the time. That he strings together 15 12 darters.
Sure.
Just when you're just cruising
Stephen
along.
Curry can hit 77 out of 100 3-pointers in practice too, but
okay, nobody's playing defense in darts.
That's what. No, there's still the mental aspect of it and the competitive aspect of it, and you're still playing against your opponent.
Yeah.
You can hit 15, 12 darters in practice by yourself because you don't have somebody else that's trying to throw an 11 darter, where all of a sudden you have to hit the double or the triple and the out,
Well, I wouldn't equate it to Steph Curry's shooting percentage because there's way more variables in there. I don't know what offense they're running, who's playing defense.
No, I'm just saying that I just don't think
in
practice, I just think it's harder to, when you're still in competition and even though you're playing against the board, you still have somebody that's taking a number down just as quick, and there's still a mental aspect in there that I just think it'd be difficult for long format to throw 15, 12 darters in a row.
Where are we on time?
Oh, we're way past everything.
All right, well, how much we got left of the show?
None.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
It's 9:36.
Well, because I wanted to talk about, your mindset, and this is what you brought up is good, because if you can go in your practice, and we've talked about this, if you can go in your practice room and, take out whatever you take out, and then, you go on the tournament and you can't do it, why is that? We've had people ask us that.
Yeah.
The one thing I would caution people, and you're talking about the difference between performing in a game and in practice. 77 out of 100 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that ridiculous?
No, well, I don't know. Not for him. I mean, I saw Kevin Garnett make like 19 straight shots from both elbows, like 10 from one, 10 in a row, and then he moves over. But then in the game, he didn't get one shot from that spot and was like 5 of 13.
Right.
So, I mean, if you can go consistently at home, like let's say you're practicing taking out 80. If at home, just relax, nobody around, you take it out 5 out of 10 times, I see no reason why you can't just go to a tournament and do the same thing. The difference that most people make is they start putting pressure on themselves to make it because they're like, oh, my God, I'm playing somebody.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
But, very seldom do you see guys do that at the free throw line, right? The only time you'll see a really good player miss a free throw is at the end of the game where he's thinking, I got to make it.
Right. Sure.
Well, that's the kind of negative thought that you don't want if you want to actually make something.
Yeah. Don't hook it into the woods. Well, what are you going to do?
How many people have went trip 20, and then said to themselves, oh, my God, I got a shot at a 1080, and they throw it in the bull or the 11 or or the fat one or, whatever. I mean, because you're doing something different now. Your mindset has changed. So what I wanted to talk about was how do you get your mindset correct for playing a game of darts, and we've run out of time? Seriously?
Yeah. It's almost 20 to 10.
All right, well we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that in the next show then, because I think that for everybody who listens,
blew by the third quarter. So
wow, I don't know how that happened. For everybody that listens to the show,
I blame the intern that we don't have a set schedule. We don't have an itinerary.
We did. It's right there. We just didn't. Somebody didn't watch the clock.
Right.
Obviously, it was me. I'm rambling on today. How do you get your mindset correct for a game of darts? Was something I thought would be worthy of discussion.
Sure.
And we finally got to it, and now we're stopping.
I think it's the same thing as how do you get your mindset for like golf? You're playing by yourself, and you have to chip the ball close or whatever, you have to, because it's, the muscle memory and everything of like wiping your mind clear of your surroundings and just doing what you repeatedly are able to do, and it's just not that easy to do.
All right, well, we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. No show next week. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Enjoy your turkey day.
We will...
I'm going to have 2 turkey days.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I'm watching football.
I'm going to be like 15 pounds heavier by the time December rolls around.
I'm doing the Al Bundy on Thanksgiving, and I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Just going to watch some football and just chill. And I still have some glug from my birthday.
Nice. I have to make that again.
Oh, please do, and give me some.
Oh, I will. I'm under the gun, but this weekend I will buy the ingredients and
buy extra because I want a lot of it, because I got to stop drinking Jack Daniels.
Yeah, because my glug has less alcohol than...
It's better for you. It's homemade, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's got fruits in it.
Fruits?
Fruits and...
Does it really? Does it have fruit in it?
Orange peels and plums and raisins.
Really?
They're not ground into it, but they're cooked into it, so the flavors are there. You get the juices.
Did you know there's 2 kinds of cinnamon?
No.
I learned that.
I did not.
I learned that yesterday.
What are the 2 kinds of cinnamon?
The cinnamon from the island of Ceylon, and then cinnamon that comes from somewhere else.
Okay.
So, by the way, we're going to have a new segment on every show starting in 2 weeks. We're going to do Mark's World.
Yes.
Okay.
This was just thrown upon me, so we'll figure out what that means.
he wasn't prepared, so we'll do that next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
World, are we going to tell them what Mark's World entails?
We'll tell them next week. They can tune in and find out.
2 weeks.
It's a teaser.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, tune in 2 weeks for Mark's World. I don't even know what it's going to be about.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next week. Everybody, safe travels. Happy holidays.